Support for The Bittersweet Life comes from our listeners. This week I want to thank Marcia. Thanks so much for your support on Patreon. If you love this show and you leave a 5-star review for us on Apple Podcasts, we may read your review on the air. Like this one from Sam. Katy and Tiffany have a unique New York Times Sunday Read type of quality to their podcast. For travel dreamers like myself, I can imagine living in Rome, not just for the sights and sounds, but all what life has to offer. Starting from the first episode, you learn the journey of an American expat who finds her home in Rome. I enjoyed the intelligent human interest stories of neighbors, in-laws, family, and the deep topics like values and violence. Thanks to Katy and Tiffany for sharing your friendship and lives on The Bittersweet Life, and keep up the good work. Thanks so much, Sam. Leave us a review. We'd love to hear what you think of the show. Welcome to Rome. This is The Bittersweet Life with Katy Sewell and Tiffany Parks.
Hello, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katy Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
And my goodness, we are
together. We're in the same place.
It's a miracle. It's a Roman miracle. So this very morning, which is a Saturday, this is the day after the last episode you heard where I could not see Tiffany because of COVID. This morning, miraculously, I tested negative.
Woohoo!
So we are here sitting on the very famous fountain steps in the Piazza of Santa Maria in Trastevere, where we've recorded plenty of episodes before.
Mm-hmm.
It's fixing to rain.
It's starting to rain. There's raindrops landing on our head as we do this.
Right, and I have a brand new recorder here that I'm trying out in Rome. We may damage it right now, but we're doing this because we're finally together, so it's great.
As we walked into the square, you said, I'm so happy to see so many familiar faces on the street corner.
Yeah, this is the thing, that when you've been gone, I've been gone now for 4 years. When I was coming back, I was wondering how many people am I going to recognize still? Anybody at this point? It's a question I always have when I get back here. But I was very happy to see that earlier this morning, she's not there now, but there used to be a woman, when I lived here way back in 2013-14, there was a woman who always sat at the corner of that blue building that we're looking at, Tiffany, that's now covered in way more graffiti than it was when I lived here.
I did. I don't even notice.
But this woman used to sit there in a chair every single day, and I guess it's crocheting. I don't exactly know.
I feel like she's doing like a hook rug.
That's what it is. It's like a hook rug where she's got a pattern on like a piece of burlap, and she's creating different images, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe you'd put it over a pillow. I don't know what you do with it.
I don't either.
Anyway, she was sitting there this morning. She was working on it. The only difference was she is now sitting next to a little box where you can put a donation in it. And I was thinking, oh, good for her.
Yes, it's like the old-fashioned version of Patreon.
Exactly. I know. Maybe we should put something down here. Do you have a cup? And then on the other corner, the opposite one where you can't see right now, there's been this same woman begging at that corner since I was here in 2013.
Yeah, she goes, "Buongiorno, bella."
Yeah, right? And she sounds so exhausted.
And miserable.
Yeah, and I pointed it out to Derek. I'm like, oh, that woman's still begging for money on that corner. And he just said, how sad.
I mean, it is sad for her.
I'm like, it is sad.
But I mean, that's her job. I mean, maybe she's happy to have that spot. You know, those spots aren't easy to come by.
I guess. I don't know. Maybe she's a person we should interview someday.
Yeah, maybe. We're like sitting upwind of a smoker right now.
We are.
Like straight in the lungs.
Which is very typical, actually. Typical Rome, typical Europe,
Yes.
I feel.
You know, I was sitting out having lunch and then a pot of tea the other day in Piazza Mattei, my favorite piazza, one of my favorites. And it was such a perfect scene. And like I had my turtle fountain, you know, babbling in front of me. I had a nice, decent pot of tea. I had just had lunch with a good friend. And the guy sitting next to me, there was like two, I could tell they were French. They were older, and they were very well dressed. And this guy was smoking one of those little cigarellos, like those little tiny ones, but it smells just like a cigar. And I mean, I was just like gritting my teeth the entire time, like wanting to say something, but like, what can you say? We're outside. finally, because they last way longer than a cigarette, So finally this thing finishes, and I'm like, thank God. And so I go back to my book and enjoying my tea, and I see him out of the corner of my eye. I mean, I was waiting for it to happen, and I saw him open up his cigarette case or his cigarello case, and I said, "Oh, je vous en prie," which means like I beg you. And he looked at me because it means I beg you, but it also means like kind of a fancy way to say excuse me. And he looked over at me to say, "Oh, what is it that you need, young lady?" And I was like, "No, je vous en prie, non." And he was like, "Okay, I understand." And he put them away, and he didn't smoke it.
Oh, that's nice.
I know. I don't know why I told you that story. It just reminded me of it.
Just because, that's this is another thing I was telling you before we got out here, that we could do an entire another episode on smell, because the smell of cigarettes is, if not ubiquitous to Rome, it is to Europe. It is to Asia also. U.S., it's not like you'll never encounter a cigarette, but we've outlawed it and shamed it enough at this point that you just don't encounter it quite as much. But here, of course, every single outdoor cafe, there's ashtrays all over the table. The cigarettes here are easier to buy. They're cheaper to buy. You don't have to buy as many of them. So I think more people smoke when they're in Europe than they do, like if they're in the United States. It's more of a commitment, maybe. It's more acceptable here. So it's
definitely more acceptable. Yeah. It's definitely so.
So I kind of associate the smell of cigarettes with being in Europe. But I also, this mysterious smell that you don't smell, there is a burning smell in the air at all times. I feel a burning wood that I would not have noticed if it had not been so long since I'd been here. But as soon as
wood.
Yeah, almost like a forest fire kind of smell.
Really? I have no idea what you're talking about.
Here's the other interesting thing. And it's not just burning smoke. It's also whatever the scents of the trees are and whatnot. But as you know, Derek and I road tripped here. Mm-hmm. We came from Germany through Austria and Switzerland and into northern Italy, and it was immediate. The way that the landscape changed and the way that the air smelled changed immediately, like as soon as we crossed the border.
Into Italy. Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. So in what way? The landscape I can get, but the smell, like what changes from Switzerland to Italy?
There was a perfume in the air that was a combination of like a perfume, like a flowering tree of some kind, and this smoke smell. And both Derek and I rolled the windows down and we went, gosh, you forget that this is what Italy smells like. But man, it smells just like Italy right here. And of course, it was just Italy, but it was a really, really lovely thing to like experience the difference in real time like that.
It's so funny because I can't imagine what you're talking about. I can't figure it out. I can't recognize it.
Well, you live in this smell.
I know I live in the smell, but there's we've talked about this before. There's a smell that I used to I feel like I used to always smell it whenever I walked into like an apartment building in Rome, and that's not just in Rome, anywhere in Italy, and that's the smell of cooking pasta sauce, tomato sauce. And I don't smell that as often anymore. I don't notice it as often. That's the difference. I don't notice it as often, but I still do notice it. And I can, like, if I stop, I'm like, okay, I'm in my mother-in-law's kitchen. Yes, okay, this is the smell. But the one you're talking about, like, I can't even place it. I don't even know I don't even know what it is.
And I don't know what it is, so I can't describe it any better. I have noticed also this trip, and I don't remember ever noticing this before, but the smell of, like, dough.
Interesting. Like
not necessarily cooked dough, but dough.
Raw dough?
I don't know.
Like raw bread? Like bread dough? Or pasta dough?
Or both, maybe.
Interesting.
I've noticed that smell a lot, too. But anyway, and one other thing, of course, we've walked past or where our old apartment was when we used to live here, and we used to live over a very popular pizza place.
It was called Ivo a Trastevere.
Yeah, Ivo Pizza, and that whole staff was still there.
All of the same guys.
All the same guys. And I was like, well, they do offer a lifetime contract in Rome.
Well, yeah, people get jobs and they just keep them forever. That is the common thing. People do change work, but that's the exception.
Yeah. So one of the things we may do while we're here is we might eat at Ivo Pizza, because I don't know if you know this, we were so irritated by living above them that we never actually ate at that restaurant.
Oh my gosh. I think I ate at Ivo's like my first year in Rome or something with a bunch of people who like they decided to go there, and I don't think I've ever been back. I don't think it made a very big impression on me. I don't think it's the best pizza in Rome. Not that it's bad, but I wouldn't counted as one of the better ones.
We kind of don't want it to be any good. Because what if it's really good and we're like, oh my gosh, we lived above this amazing restaurant?
It's not, though. It's not. Especially because you guys like Neapolitan pizza, right? You liked our Poeta. That's Neapolitan. That, I think Evo's is Roman, which I don't know. It's just not as good. It's just kind of...
How would you define the difference?
Well, Roman pizza is very flat. And it can be better or worse. Like some Roman pizza, like if they do it and it's really crunchy, I think it's good. I still prefer Neapolitan, but a lot of times you get a Roman pizza and you slice it and you pick it up, and as you're holding the crust, like the rest just kind of like hangs down and all the toppings fall off. Like that's the most disgusting thing ever. And you have to fold it when you eat it. You have to fold it or it falls apart. And to me, no thank you. I'd rather go hungry. Neapolitan pizza is higher and it's chewy, it's doughy, and it's just, there's so much more to it. There's so much, and I feel like the dough has so much flavor if it's done well that, I mean, it's a totally different thing. It's like incomparable in my mind.
Yeah, interesting. So when I was not here yet, but you and I were talking, you said, I'm so sorry, Katy, but Rome is like more overrun with tourists than I've ever seen it. And I've been walking around the last few days, albeit slowly and not as far as I would have liked, given that I was trying to recover from COVID. But I will say that it's crowded, but it doesn't seem that crowded to me. And so my question was, that I was posing to Derek, or at least in my own head yesterday, was I wonder if it feels more crowded to you because you've spent the last 2 years with hardly anyone here.
That I think is true, absolutely. But also it was Easter weekend. That weekend, that it was sort of, my mom arrived on the Thursday night before Easter, and on the Friday, so Good Friday, we went out. You know, she was staying near the Spanish Steps, so we went out. We were like Trevi Fountain, Pantheon, like that area, and it was so crowded. I almost had, I don't want to say a panic attack, but that was that kind of feeling, overwhelmed by people. Like I gotta go somewhere. I gotta get out of all this crowd, or I'm gonna feel awful. So I think it was that particular weekend was nuts. I mean, Easter weekend is famously one of the most crowded weekends in the entire, it's probably the single most crowded weekend in Rome. So it probably was way worse then than it is now. But I think you do have, you are right that it feels much more crowded, because it used to be that, you know, you could sit in this square and there was like 5 people here.
Yeah, that would have been so nice. I've also been noticing there seems to be a wider variety of dogs right now, and there also seems to be a lot less dog poop on the street than before. So I'm wondering 2 things, I guess. Is there some sort of new ordinance that's making people pick up their dog poop more? And is it sort of like in the United States where during the pandemic everybody got a dog?
I feel like everybody in Italy has a dog. They're everywhere. My in-laws got a dog.
Oh, your in-laws got a dog?
Yeah, never mentioned? No. Yes. I mean, technically it's my sister-in-law's dog, but you know how it is. When a 19-year-old, now 20-year-old gets a dog, it's like her parents' dog, really. Yeah. So yes, Utah. They named her Utah because she's the color of Utah.
The color of Utah? What's the color of Utah?
I mean, it's kind of like an orangey, like a burnt orange type color. You know, like Zion, Bryce Canyon. Have you been to Bryce Canyon? Monument Valley. Like it's the color of Monument Valley. Okay. So yeah, everybody has a dog, but I mean, Italy was already a big dog place. Lots of people had dogs before. But I think with the dog poop, I mean, I have noticed a huge change since I moved here. Like from when I moved here to when you came, it was already way better, way, way better. When I first moved here, nobody cleaned up after their dog. And now most people do. Like I saw at least 2 on our way here from your apartment, which you don't see it as much. So you notice it more. I was doing a tour the other day with some of our listeners, actually, and this guy had let his dog go on the street and not picked it up. And I went up to him and I said, you know, they have these really cool things now. They're like little plastic bags for dog poo that you can keep them on your leash. They're so convenient. He's like, I have them, but I was out. I just used the last one. But okay, fine. Like I shamed the guy a little bit.
And in Italian, I hope, so nobody on the tour knew what you're doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was just a couple, and I told them what I was going to do. But yes, it was in Italian.
What to you seems different. Having lived through the pandemic here, and now I know, like, right as I arrived, basically, they lifted all of the restrictions. People in stores...
Not all. A lot, but not all.
Yeah, but people in stores are still wearing masks, but it's not required anymore, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
Same with restaurants. In the Czech Republic, by the way, no masks anywhere.
Anywhere. Wow. Is it illegal to wear them?
I mean, you'd see them occasionally on the random person, but when we were in Berlin, for instance, you couldn't get on a train or any kind of public transit without wearing a mask. You just weren't allowed on. Or in the station, for that matter. By the time we got to the Czech Republic, all of that's gone. Like, the buses are packed, nobody's wearing a mask. And then here, it's been just sort of a mix.
That's where you got it, Katie. That's where you got it. You got it in Prague, for sure.
Maybe. I mean, we don't know. There's one particular guy where I'm like, I must have gotten it from that guy. But timing wise, Derek thinks I already had it that day. So now I actually just have to worry about, did I give it to that guy? Which I feel terrible about. Like, wondering if you've given it to somebody is just the worst. But I did talk to this guy, or he talked to us, basically. He sat next to us in a pub that Derek really wanted to go to, and he was a 78-year-old guy, super into grunge music, so very happy that we were from Seattle. Said his favorite band was Faith No More, which was an interesting choice because I only could think of one really famous Faith No More song. And he also really loved the band Cream, but thought we were too young to understand what that was. And I'm like, no, I know what Cream is. But we had a very long, extremely stilted conversation with this person for a really long time.
Was he local?
Yeah, he was local. Yeah, local and drunk, so...
Oh my gosh. I hope you didn't give it to him.
I know. At the time, I was thinking, when we left there, I remember saying to Derek, well, if I got COVID, it was probably from that guy. Because, he's not only sitting really close to me, he's spitting on me occasionally. Geez. And turns out that, no, it was probably the opposite. Now, I really hope I didn't give it to that guy, because he was really nice.
Yikes.
What do you notice about the difference of... Like, does it feel like Italians in general, the people around you, do they feel like they've changed? Or is any of their behavior patterns different?
I don't know if I can even answer that. I don't know that I know the answer to that. Maybe if I were Italian and had lived here my whole life, I could answer that. Although I did leave here 15 years before the pandemic, so I should have an idea. I do feel like I was very surprised in general, all through the pandemic, at the... about the willingness of Italians to follow the rules and do their part and be prudent. I met a lot of people, ran into them, they might have been like parents from Aurelio's school, and a lot of people who are like, yeah, we are not seeing our grandparents, our kids' grandparents, like their own parents. Like, we're not seeing them at all, not just during the 2 months of the pandemic, but like in the 6 months, like until there were vaccines, like people just wouldn't see their parents. And wow, that's hardcore. I couldn't have done that. I was just surprised, full stop, during the pandemic. Now that it's quote unquote over, now that the state of emergency has ended, I don't know. I mean, I do think that Italians have a very good way of bouncing back after this kind of thing. And I mean, I told you, like, the rules through the pandemic have changed so much in Italy. Like, okay, masks outside, no more masks outside, masks inside. Okay, you can't sit outside, you can sit outside, you can sit inside. Like, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it just seems like everyone's able to adapt so fast to these new rules. It's like, oh, now masks aren't allowed? Okay, fine.
Yeah, but I mean, are they following the rule? Like, when it's switching back and forth that much, are they still following the rules? Or are they just,
No, they are. Because they're really, which is weird. Because in Italy, like, famously, they don't enforce the rules. This is why people don't follow the rules, is because they're not enforced. So, like, people double park everywhere. People park in non-parking zones. People park in front of fire hydrants because they're not going to get towed. I mean, it might happen, but it's very unlikely. And so many things like that. People litter. People don't pick up their dog poop, all this stuff. But with the masks, okay, yes, we did have, especially at the beginning, a lot of people wearing the masks down low, like not covering their noses. But, I mean, I went to the opera just 2 days before they lifted the mask requirement. And to be clear, you still have to wear masks, and not just any mask, but an FFP2 mask. You still have to wear them on public transport, any kind of trains, airplanes, stuff like that, and any kind of concert, sporting event, things like that. So you do still have to wear them some places. But I was at the opera, and I had a regular surgical mask, and they wouldn't let me in. I had to go run to a pharmacy 2 minutes before the curtain and try to get myself an FFP2 mask. And it was very stressful. So I was like, really? Like, really? Yeah. So I guess they enforce it here, I guess. It seems counterintuitive, but it's how it is.
But I hear that opera, at least from what you posted online, was pretty great.
It was. It was so good. So good. It was I Puritani by Bellini. Very good. Better than expected.
What was better than expected about it?
Well, I've been to a lot of operas at the Rome Opera, not so much lately because of the pandemic, but in the years leading up to it. And I'm always kind of underwhelmed, by the quality. The quality is good. I mean, it's an important professional house, so it's not like they're terrible. But, like not like world class maybe. And secondly, like I always feel like they always have to do something really edgy. They have to do some like crazy staging that doesn't make any sense, that totally weirds you out. I saw Don Giovanni that was just so bizarre. Like I couldn't even enjoy it. And this was pretty classic. Like there were a couple of avant-garde aspects to it, but it didn't interfere with the actual story, and it didn't interfere with, when I go to the opera, I want it to feel like it's an opera. I don't want to feel like I'm going to some avant-garde theater where people are just singing opera. You know what I mean? The only problem was they had this light. They had this platform that the singers would stand on in the middle of the stage. Someone's coughing behind us. Luckily, you've had COVID, so you're fine.
You, not so much.
Not so much. Maybe I should put my mask on. They stood on this platform that had light shining up from it, which was kind of interesting. It lit them in a particular way, and there was another platform hanging from the ceiling that shone light down on them, but occasionally they would tilt the panels towards the audience. And I think I must be extra sensitive to light because I couldn't look at it. And everybody else in the theater, I was like looking at people. Everybody else was sitting there fine, and I like was shading my eyes. So I don't know why. But other than that, sorry, another tangent. But I feel like this episode is a real census episode, right? Because we had been talking about the smells of Rome, and we're sitting here with raindrops falling on our head, and we've talked about some food, some pizza, and now about opera. What sense are we missing, Katie?
You can hear the wind as we're speaking, like that kind of weird vacuum it creates with the microphone occasionally. So that what that would be feeling? Feeling is always hard.
Hearing.
Like touch is always hard, at least to convey on the radio. I mean, I can say that this stone is very hard and my butt hurts sitting on it.
The raindrops I think feel good.
Yeah.
They're like at the perfect amount where they're not enough. It's not enough rain to be getting you wet. It's just to like kind of give you a little drop every so often.
Yeah, so unlike one of the things about the Roman rain is that when it comes, sometimes it comes in hot, and you just are all of a sudden scrambling to find a doorway to stand in, and then it's gone again. It's just this absolute downpour. So yeah, let's see. We did smell. We haven't done taste really.
We
talked about pizza. The feel of the rain.
The sound of the church bells.
The sound of the church bells.
Heard, and the people coughing behind us. And sight.
All right, so let's describe somewhat. We'll end this episode by talking a little bit about what we're seeing.
Well, Katie mentioned the graffiti on the wall on the corner building, which I hadn't noticed because I feel like there's always graffiti there. But they must paint over it from time to time.
Yes, definitely. I think that they create a new canvas and somebody steps in to fill the void.
Yeah, I was noticing this. There's a very decorative doorway on a different building with, I don't know, it almost looks like the Starbucks mermaid without the fishtail. Like it's bizarre. I'm trying to figure out if that's even a man or a woman or a child. It's got some kind of very strange breasts. I don't know what is that.
Almost like a Roman breastplate, maybe.
Yeah, but the face looks like the face of a child. It's got long hair, but it's got like the Roman soldier leather skirt. So I'm totally confused by that.
Yes, I've spent so much time sitting on these very steps that I've contemplated that figure.
Have you?
A lot.
I don't think I've ever noticed it. Literally,
I feel like you've talked about it before on the show.
I've never noticed that.
We'll have to rewind the tape.
And there's also like two arms holding swords, just the arms on the outside.
Yeah, and I often, if I'm just sitting in a piazza like this, I notice what the people are doing, but I also watch what the pigeons are doing. Mm-hmm. I have a tendency to really just sort of think of them as these like intrepid souls that are wandering around picking up behind us. And I don't know, I like thinking of them as being on their own individual journey, which of course they are. But sometimes I just sit there and like almost picture, like, what would the world look like to them? They're navigating all these tall people that are walking around.
Try not to get stepped on.
Try not to get stepped on, but also doing like real cleanup work. They're very aware of where the other ones of them are.
Yeah.
Their own societies.
I've always thought, since the beginning of the pandemic, like, what do the birds think now that nobody is outside? During like the true lockdown from March to May of 2020, like all of a sudden the birds of Rome are like, where is everybody? Like, don't you wonder, like, what they were thinking? Like, if they noticed?
Oh, they noticed.
Yeah, and what could they possibly, like, what's going on? What were their theories of where everybody went?
Well, and I mean, it probably would have depended on what kind of bird you were.
Yes, some birds are smarter than others. Pigeons are very smart.
Pigeons are very smart,
So are
but
ravens
pigeons
and
also
crows.
like make their like living off of us, basically. So I don't know if
exactly.
it was a harder period of time for them.
Probably was. I mean, because where are the sandwich crumbs that usually they live off of?
Yeah, or like the wedding rice. I saw a bunch cleaning up wedding rice this morning.
Oh yeah, there's
At your wedding church, by the way. There was a wedding there this morning.
Oh, was there?
Church you got married in. Yeah, and I think I've said this on the show before. Everything in Italy and everything in Rome is very loud. People are louder. The way they drive, the cars are louder. The motorbikes are louder. The way that people talk to each other is louder. Everything is done in this louder way. And I was walking down the street, and this sparrow was just like screaming its head off up above me. Look, even the birds here are louder because they have to be they have to be louder than all the other loud things to be heard by the other birds sitting across the way. And so I mean, they would have at least noticed how much easier it was to communicate, if nothing else.
Yeah, that's totally true. And I know I've told you personally about this. There has been an explosion in the parrot community. I mean, there are parrots everywhere in Rome now. You used to see them like in Villa Doria Pamphili. If you were lucky, I have like a picture I took of one with Zoom because I was so excited that there was a green parrot in the tree. Now I see them daily. I see them several times a day from my apartment, and I hear them all the time, and now I can recognize their call so specifically. And I'm like, oh, parrots, there's more parrots. Did they finally have the freedom to reproduce as they wanted to? Like, what's going on? Was that a pandemic-related thing or not? I don't know.
Yeah, they certainly are prevalent. I've been hearing them a lot. Maybe you're just noticing them more.
Perhaps. No. There are definitely more. In fact, they're starting to kind of become a problem because they're preying on other birds. It might be a problem. I don't know if they're going to start having to take care of them, if you know what I mean. And the other thing is, which I learned from Claudio, their nests. Have you ever seen a Roman parrot nest?
No, I mean, they're usually in palm trees. I know that.
Well, they make their nests in the Roman pine trees prevalently, and they weigh so much. They weigh like 50 kilos, which is like almost as much as I weigh. It's probably more than what you weigh.
The nests, too?
The nests. And sometimes when they fall, they're like this big. I'm opening my arms. They're like 2 meters wide. When they fall, they can kill people. And it's a problem. People have died from parrot nests falling on their heads.
Really?
Yes.
I feel like this seems suspicious.
I didn't believe it either. I will find the source of this. I did not believe it either. And then when Aurelia was at summer camp a couple years ago, there was a parrot nest above the school. And I remember telling Claudio, and he was like, "Oh, I hope it doesn't fall." because they're dangerous. I'm serious. 50 kilos, I think, is what they weigh.
Well, somebody look that up and tell us if that's true. I thought they were rosy-cheeked parakeets. I thought that's what they were.
I mean, they are technically parakeets, but they're so big. They're not like the tiny little yellow parakeet. They're big. Again, I'm holding up my hands. They're like a foot long.
Really?
Yeah, they're huge.
There must be two different things that I'm picking up.
Because there's ones that are in our neighborhood that will sit on the end of our planters on our balcony, and they're freaking big. Maybe not a foot and a half. Maybe a foot.
Like
long,
the size of a baby.
Well, like from the bottom of the feathers, the tail feathers are long.
Right.
So from the top of the head to the bottom of the feathers.
So these are in addition to the parakeets.
Well, I don't know. Maybe they're the same, maybe they aren't.
Okay.
I don't know.
Well,
I can't promise you.
and we'll finish with what? Let's give the image of one other thing to finish.
There's a little boy. He's probably 2.5. When he's got his little transparent umbrella and he's squatting over a sewer grate, and his mom is not happy with that,
Yeah,
and
she
moved him off.
She's moving him along.
And he was discovering probably something really exciting, and now probably he's going to miss his career path to be, a hydraulic engineer. I don't
Sewer
know.
inspector.
Starting to rain. So
It's
we need to
starting
get
to
out
rain
of the
hard.
rain.
I know. Okay, so we will leave it there. Welcome to Rome. We're finally together. Hooray, hurrah. I thought it would never happen. I still can't quite believe it. And until next time, this is The Bittersweet Life. I'm Katie Sewell.
I'm Tiffany Parks.
Opening an umbrella. Talk to you soon. Bye.
The Bittersweet Life is created and produced by me, Katie Sewell. My co-host is Tiffany Parks. If you're traveling to Rome this summer, set up a tour with Tiffany by writing to bittersweetlifepodcast@gmail.com. Our intern this summer is Allison Kramer. We will be hitting the streets of Rome on the podcast all summer long, so if you know anyone who loves Italy, tell them about the show and recommend that they subscribe. Our logo is designed by Jody Rick at the Lost Laboratory, featuring the art of our muse, Caravaggio. If you support the show either through Patreon or PayPal, you will receive a handwritten thank you note in the mail and our logo on a magnet. It's just what your fridge or car bumper is missing. Listener support is vital to the continuation of this show. If listening has become a valued part of your week, and you have the means, help us pay the bills by throwing a 5 or a 10 or a 20 in the hat, just as you would if you saw a street performer in Rome that you really love. You can find links to donate in the show notes or at thebittersweetlife.net. And my thanks to Drew Atkins for helping design the new website.